Welcome to my video. Please subscribe my channel tonight. We cover a Supreme Court decision that is sending shockwaves through the nation and will be discussed for years to come. This landmark ruling will reshape gun laws nationwide, impacting how Americans understand their rights and responsibilities. In a 6-3 decision, the court declared that state and local bans on certain semi-automatic firearms, often referred to as assault weapons, are unconstitutional under the Second Amendment. This means that states like California, New York, and Illinois, which have some of the strictest gun laws in the country, can no longer enforce these bans. The decision represents the most significant change to gun rights in decades, directly affecting millions of Americans from coast to coast. For years, a confusing patchwork of state laws led to legal battles, uncertainty, and frustration for both gun owners and law enforcement. Now the Supreme Court has delivered a single, sweeping national answer, clarifying the law for all Americans. The majority opinion states that the Second Amendment protects firearms in common use for lawful purposes, including popular modern semi-automatic rifles, like the AR-15. This decision builds on the 2022 Bruin case, which established a new legal test. Modern gun laws must be consistent with the nation's historical traditions and founding principles. The court found no historical precedent for banning an entire class of firearms based solely on their features or appearance, a key point in their reasoning. Gun rights supporters are celebrating what they call a major victory, saying the ruling confirms the Second Amendment as a fundamental, nationwide right. On the other side, gun control advocates warn the decision is dangerous, fearing it will make it easier for deadly weapons to spread and increase the risk of mass shootings. They argue the court ignored the realities of modern gun violence, and that communities already struggling with gun crime may now face even greater challenges. The effects are immediate. State legislatures and local governments must now quickly revise their laws to comply with the new national standard. This ruling is certain to fuel heated debate about public safety, constitutional rights, and the future of gun regulation for years to come. The Supreme Court's decision marks a pivotal moment in America's ongoing struggle over guns, law, and liberty. The legal landscape has shifted overnight, leaving many to wonder what the future holds. As the nation absorbs this historic ruling, one thing is clear. America now faces a new era in the fight over the Second Amendment, and the conversation is only just beginning. To understand the ruling, we need to clarify what assault weapon means. This term is often misunderstood and misused in public discourse. It's not a military term, but a political and legal label for certain semi-automatic firearms. These labels have significant implications for gun owners and lawmakers alike. These guns fire one bullet per trigger pull and automatically load the next round. This mechanism is common in many firearms used for hunting and sport shooting. Bans targeted rifles with features like pistol grips, adjustable stocks, flash suppressors, or large-capacity magazines. These features are often seen as enhancing the firearm's functionality. Supporters of the bans argued these features made the guns more dangerous in mass shootings. They believed that restricting these features could potentially save lives. They said pistol grips and large magazines increased lethality and rapid fire. This, they argued, made it easier for shooters to cause more harm in a shorter amount of time. The goal was to reduce harm in mass shootings by limiting access to these firearms. This approach aimed to make such tragic events less frequent and less deadly. Opponents countered that these features are mostly cosmetic and don't change how the gun operates. They argued that the focus should be on the user's intent rather than the firearm's design. They argued banning guns based on appearance is illogical, like banning cars for their color. This comparison highlighted what they saw as the irrationality of the bans. This was a central argument before the Supreme Court. The justices had to weigh these differing perspectives carefully. Bans varied by state, with 9 states and D.C. enacting them before the ruling. This created a patchwork of laws across the country. Some laws named specific models, others used feature-based tests. This inconsistency added to the confusion for gun owners and law enforcement. This created a confusing legal patchwork. What was legal in one state could be illegal in another. Gun owners had to navigate these complex regulations carefully. The Supreme Court stepped in to resolve this inconsistency. Their decision aimed to create a more uniform standard across the nation. Now the definition and legality of these firearms are set at the national level. This ruling has significant implications for future legislation and enforcement. The debate over what makes a weapon dangerous is far from over. Both sides continue to present strong arguments for their positions. But the court has spoken. Features alone can't justify a ban. This landmark decision will shape the future of gun legislation in America. Justice Clarence Thomas wrote the majority opinion, relying on the history and tradition test from the 2022 Bruen case. The court found no historical precedent for banning firearms simply because they were new or looked dangerous. The opinion emphasized common use. Millions of Americans own AR-15s and similar rifles. The justices argued that banning the most popular rifle in America is like banning the most popular book. Features like pistol grips and adjustable stocks were dismissed as ergonomic, not dangerous. The Second Amendment, they said, protects modern firearms, not just muskets. The court acknowledged mass shootings but insisted the Constitution doesn't allow banning a class of weapons owned by law-abiding citizens. The message, public safety can't override a fundamental right. The three dissenting justices, led by Sonia Sotomayor, warned the ruling would have deadly consequences. They argued the majority's focus on history ignores the unique lethality of modern firearms. The dissent said the Constitution should allow lawmakers to address today's gun violence crisis. They pointed to historical regulations on dangerous weapons as precedent for modern bans. The dissenters argued assault weapons are designed for combat and pose a unique threat in mass shootings. They accused the majority of ignoring public safety and democratic decisions by states. The warning, this ruling will make it harder to prevent mass tragedies. The dissent predicts more violence and future regret. The ruling immediately impacts 9 states: California, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, and D.C. These states must stop enforcing their assault weapon bans. Law enforcement can no longer arrest or charge people for possessing or selling these firearms. Dealers will soon be able to sell AR-15s and similar rifles in these states. The change won't be instant, but the legal barrier is gone. Other gun laws, like background checks and waiting periods, remain in effect. The decision only strikes down bans based on firearm features. States may try new regulations, but any law will face immediate legal challenges. The Supreme Court has set a high bar for future gun control measures. The legal fight over gun regulation is far from over. The debate over assault weapons has shaped American politics for decades, sparking passionate arguments on both sides of the issue. From the halls of Congress to rallies in the streets, the question of how to regulate these firearms has never been far from the national spotlight. In 1994, the federal government took a major step by banning certain semi-automatic firearms and large-capacity magazines, aiming to curb gun violence and mass shootings. The law, known as the Federal Assault Weapons Ban, was a landmark moment in American gun policy. But the law included a sunset clause, and in 2004, it expired. This led to a surge in AR-15 sales and a renewed debate over the effectiveness of such bans, as gun manufacturers quickly adapted to the changing legal landscape. Afterward, states began passing their own bans, often in response to devastating mass shootings like Sandy Hook in 2012. Which reignited calls for stricter gun control and inspired new legislation at the state level. This created a patchwork of laws across the country, with some states enacting strict bans while others allowed broad access to assault-style weapons. Earlier Supreme Court cases, like Heller in 2008, affirmed an individual's right to own firearms, but also made clear that some regulation was still possible under the Constitution. Lower courts upheld state bans, often calling these guns dangerous and unusual, and arguing that states had the authority to protect public safety. But the 2022 Bruen decision changed the legal standard, requiring that modern gun laws must have clear historical roots, making it harder for states to justify new restrictions. Today's ruling applies that stricter test, striking down state bans nationwide and sending shockwaves through the legal and political landscape. The legal landscape has shifted repeatedly, from federal to state, and now, back to a national standard that will affect millions of Americans. Each tragedy has fueled new laws and new court battles, as communities and lawmakers struggle to balance safety and rights. Now, the Supreme Court has set a new national standard, reshaping the future of gun regulation in America. The fight over assault weapons has entered a new era, with the nation once again divided and the next chapter still unwritten. The ruling has sparked intense reactions nationwide. Gun rights groups like the NRA call it a historic victory for the Second Amendment. They say it protects millions of law-abiding gun owners and ends years of legal struggle. Gun control advocates, including Everytown and Brady, condemn the decision as reckless and dangerous. They warn it will lead to more gun violence and mass shootings. Politicians and survivors of gun violence have voiced anger and heartbreak. The ruling has deepened America's divide over guns. For some, it's a triumph for freedom. For others, a devastating blow to public safety. This ruling changes the future of gun laws in America. Bans on entire classes of common firearms are now unconstitutional. Gun control advocates will shift to other regulations: safe storage, background checks, red flag laws. Every new law will face legal challenges under the history and tradition test. The debate will move to politics and elections, with both parties forced to take a stand. The Supreme Court has set a high bar for gun regulation. The conversation about balancing rights and safety will continue in a new legal landscape. America's struggle over guns is far from over.